So what we did is put together a toolkit and put that in the plan. The toolkit basically has a set of pedestrian infrastructure treatments and countermeasures that you can use and select based on certain criteria, and you can put those along the corridor as you see fit. A few examples on the top left corner there, that's a pedestrian island. It's also called a pork chop island. And one thing it does is it breaks the crossing distance up into 2 segments, so it gives the pedestrian more time to cross. As you can see, there's a right turn only lane on the bottom there, so it channelizes right turning traffic and actually improves signal timing for the intersection as a whole. And it also improves sight distance for the drivers and the pedestrians. It allows people to make more eye contact before they cross the street. High visibility crosswalk on the upper right is very basic. When you have those longitudinal markings that are laid out that way as opposed to lateral markings going across the street, it's a lot more visible to drivers approaching the intersection. And it also shows pedestrians very clearly where they're supposed to be. In the bottom left, we have what's called an accessible pedestrian signal. That button there, it's a vibro-tactile button, so that means it'll vibrate at you, it'll talk to you, it flashes at you. Basically, any sort of disability you might have, it'll still be able to communicate with you. So it's ADA compliant for people with disabilities, and it also improves signal timing for the intersection as a whole. And then finally, on the bottom right, that's an example of reducing corner curb radii. Right now, if you look at Brandt and Chambersburg, you'll see really large, shallow curbs, which means that people can take those turns at high speeds, and they don't have to yield, they don't have to look for pedestrians. That kind of infrastructure is encouraging people to speed through those turns. So the brick line that you see in the middle of the sidewalk there, that's where the curb used to be, and you can see how it juts out much farther into the intersection now, which tightens up that geometry and makes that intersection more right-angled and more compact. And that's a much friendlier environment for pedestrians and cyclists and other people besides motor vehicles. So I know I'm going fast, but these are just a few examples I picked out from the plan of improvements that you can use along the pike. So what does it look like when you apply it to an intersection on Brandt Pike? This is a rendering of Brandt and Chambersburg. So the bottom left corner is where you would have Huber Center. And we decided to see what it would look like if you put in a pedestrian island on Chambersburg, so it's controlling right turning traffic onto the pike. If you put in high visibility crosswalks and accessible pedestrian signals at all the key crossing points, you suddenly wind up with a much more compact and much more defined space. So if you go out there now as a pedestrian, you'll see just swaths of pavement in front of you, crosswalks that are way too long to cross in a reasonable amount of time. What this does is tightens up all those spaces and makes it a lot more welcoming for pedestrians. And we're not saying that we shouldn't accommodate private vehicles as well. Obviously, cars are still going to be the dominant form of transportation using the pike. This just levels out the playing field for other modes. And that is important when you have your new development, your mixed use, your restaurants, and your retail. You want to allow people to walk there and bike there and take the bus there.